Sit comfortably, and for a moment, let everything you think you know about desires, goals, and achieving just fade into the background. Because what we're about to talk about goes much deeper than that. And if you truly allow yourself to feel it, something inside you may begin to shift. Have you ever noticed that you seem to want something? You think about it, you set goals, you imagine it, but deep inside there's no quiet certainty, no sense that this is truly yours. Instead, there's tension, there's doubt, there's this constant feeling that you need to push harder, try more, force something to happen. And even when you move forward, it feels like you're slightly out of alignment, like you're chasing something that keeps slipping away. And this is where the real question begins. Not why your desires are not manifesting, but whether what you think you want is actually yours. Because most people never stop to ask themselves this. They keep chasing, comparing, improving, striving. But they never pause and look within. They never question the origin of their desire. Neville Goddard spoke about desire in a very different way. He said that a true desire is not random. It is not just a passing thought. It is a signal, a message from a deeper level of your being. And if you truly desire something, it means that somewhere within you, that reality already exists. But here is where things become complicated. Because between that inner truth and your outer life, there is a layer made of conditioning, fear, habits, expectations. And this layer distorts everything. It reshapes your desires until they no longer feel clear, until they become something you think you should want, rather than something that is naturally yours. Joseph Murphy explained that the subconscious mind accepts as truth whatever you consistently feel and repeat. And if for years you have been living from, "I have to," "this is safer," "this is what is expected," your subconscious begins to treat that as your identity, even if it has nothing to do with who you really are. And this is how people end up wanting things that don't belong to them. They move toward goals that don't resonate. And even when they achieve something, there is no fulfillment, because there was never alignment to begin with. So let's slow down for a moment and ask something honestly, not quickly, not intellectually, but deeply. What I want right now, is it truly mine? Or is it something I've accepted from the world around me? Maybe you think you want money, but if you go deeper, what you really want is freedom, or safety, or the ability to choose. Maybe you think you want a relationship, but what you truly want is to feel seen, valued, chosen. And this is where deep alignment begins, because as long as you focus on the surface, you remain unstable. But the moment you connect to the essence, everything starts to shift. Neville said, "Do not imagine the thing itself. Imagine the feeling of the wish fulfilled." And this is where most people go wrong. They try to see images, but they never enter the state. And the state is everything. Because the subconscious mind does not respond to words. It responds to feeling, to experience, to what feels real within you. So right now, do something simple. Don't force anything. Don't try to create something. Just for a moment, allow yourself to feel as if your desire is already fulfilled. Not as a fantasy, but as a fact. And then ask yourself, what do I feel? Not what do I think, but what do I feel? Maybe it's calm, maybe it's relief, maybe it's quiet confidence, maybe it's a sense that everything is in place. And that feeling is your key. Not the goal, not the image, but the state. And here is something very important. You can access this state right now, without waiting, without achieving, without changing anything on the outside. And this is where real transformation begins. Because you stop waiting, you stop chasing, you stop living from the idea that something is missing, and you begin to move into a state where it already belongs to you. But there is a subtle trap here, one that most people don't notice. You can start practicing, imagining, feeling, but still be waiting inside, still checking, still asking, when will it happen? Where is it? And that waiting is a form of doubt. You don't wait for something that is already yours. Neville was very clear about this. The state of waiting is not the state of having. If you are waiting, you are still in the feeling of absence. And this is the turning point. Deep alignment begins when the feeling of completion appears, not because you forced it, but because you genuinely touched it. It is quiet. It is steady. It does not rush. It does not need to prove anything. And if you are honest with yourself, you can always tell the difference between force and truth. Force feels tense. Truth feels natural. Now let's go even deeper, because there are desires that come from lack, and there are desires that come from fullness. And these are two completely different energies. When you want from lack, you reinforce the idea that you don't have it. You keep yourself in a loop of absence. When you want from fullness, you feel as if it is already part of you, even if it hasn't appeared yet, and that changes everything. Deep alignment is the shift from lack to fullness, from waiting to knowing, from tension to inner agreement. And this is not something you do once. It is something you begin to live. It starts with honesty, with noticing what is truly yours and what is not. Because true desire never creates neutrality conflict. It does not require you to break yourself, force yourself, become someone else. If you feel like you have to fight yourself, it is not your true desire. True desire feels like recognition, like remembering who you are, not creating something new. And when you begin to live from that place, even slightly, even inconsistently, things begin to change. Your decisions become clearer. Your actions become calmer. You stop reacting from fear and start choosing from alignment. And life begins to respond, not because you are trying to control it, but because you have changed internally. You have become the version of yourself for whom this is natural. And that is the real shift. Not outside, but inside. And something interesting happens next. Things begin to unfold faster, but it no longer feels like magic, because the resistance is gone. There is only movement, quiet, natural, almost invisible. And this is where the most powerful changes happen, not in effort, but in alignment. So if you feel that something inside you is starting to resonate, not just in your mind, but deeper, stay with this feeling for a moment. Don't rush, because this is not just information. This is something you experience. And if this speaks to you, if you feel that this is something real, support this video with a like, subscribe to the channel, and come back to this again. Because this is not something you hear once and fully understand. This is something you return to, and each time you go deeper. And right now, the most important thing you can do is not to try to apply everything at once, but to start noticing. Noticing your true desires. Noticing where they come from. Noticing the state you live in most of the time. Because that state is what shapes your reality. And the moment you begin to see that, you gain something very powerful. You gain choice. Not force, not struggle, but choice. And that is where real transformation begins.